I recently read that one of the side effects of sin is loneliness. The Dominican Father B. Jarrett writes, "The sense of sin brings with it a feeling of loneliness when the first pleasurable excitement has worn off." Pope Benedict XVI goes on to such a loneliness could reach a point of being hell for a sinner. He writes, "If there is such a thing as a loneliness which could no longer be penetrated and transformed by the word of another, then we should have real, total loneliness and frightfulness, what theology calls hell." I don't think I ever thought about loneliness being a consequence of my sin. Have you? Oh, I'm conscious as you are of the guilt I feel when I have done something wrong, and the shame I experience, which is even worse, after I have become angry in a manner that is destructive and not constructive. But the more I think about it, I can recall specific sins that I have committed where one of the feelings I have had is loneliness and isolation. The sins committed put me in a frame of mind that created a breach in my relationship, separated me from another or even with others, and I suddenly felt isolated and alone in my sin, and even began to feel like somehow I didn't belong in the relationship. No doubt about it, I was lonely. In our novena prayers each week, we continually call on Mary to help us in our temptations, and most especially during those times when we sin. And now that I think about it, I believe Mary not only can give us the grace to overcome our temptations, but she can save us from that loneliness that comes after we sin, because she is always there for us, no matter how much we mess up or go astray. We are not alone, and she wants us to know that we belong. Jesus' promise, "I will not leave you orphans," finds its fulfillment in Mary. How does Mary help us in dispelling our loneliness? Well, in speaking of the saints in general, the Catechism teaches us that what they can do for us is amazing, because they are very attentive to our feelings, so that when we cry out to them, they apply the merits of their holy lives to our petitions, just as the shedding of Christ's blood is said to ask pardon for us. Father Peter Cameron, the editor of the Magnificat, has a simple, excellent example which I think helps us to understand how all this works. Now, if you're as old as I am, you may remember those days when there were things called green stamps. Green stamps were bonuses given to you by the supermarket when you bought your groceries. And they were meant to be exchanged for the merchandise of all sorts. You would collect them, paste them into books, and when you had a whole lot of books, you could turn them in and get anything you wanted that was good. He tells how his grandmother and his two aunts would pool all their books together and turn them in as one collection in order to get that one really good gift. As I mentioned before, you had to have a lot if you wanted to get something good. When the grandmother went to turn the books in, the clerk didn't say to her, "Wait a minute, what's going on here? These are not all your green stamps. Some of them belong to your daughters, I know that." Instead, the clerk simply just counted the total number of books, and if the amount was correct, out came the big gift from the magic green stamp room. Believe it or not, Mary does something similar for us. to our prayers, she applies her holy merits so that when God receives our prayers, our petitions, He doesn't question or object to what may be lacking in us. Rather, He rejoices in the magnitude of Mary's love, which has pooled her prayers, or who has pooled her prayers with ours. And so in this wonderful exchange between Mary and God, the holiness of Mary, it profits us. By the way, the name of the place where you turn in your green stamps, it was called the Redemption Center. The attentiveness and sincerity that Mary shows us helps to set our hearts aflame with a love that has the power and the grace to dispel our loneliness. Through her intercession, God gives us what we need and expels the curse of loneliness, which would otherwise be our lot. Mary, our Mother of Perpetual Help, we know we never cease asking you to help us in our temptations and our sin. But today, we want to thank you for your generous care and your companionship.